Welcome into NHL Tonight, first shift for Monday, March the 17th, 2025, here from sunny Florida, Manalapan, Florida, the O Resort and Spa, Palm Beach area. Beautiful weather, palm trees, and of course, I have Dan Rosen with me.
Well,
Yep, EJ Raddick and Dan Rosen. We're coming at you. Another tough year, another tough assignment for us.
tough to draw this gig every year.
It is. It really is.
I'll tell you what. It used to be a little harder because there was a lot going on at these meetings.
Well, it was more.
several
It
years
could
ago.
be more contentious. There were more bigger picture
Yes.
issues than there are now, which is a credit to, I think, the managers, the league, to kind of going through and getting the game where it is today. But certainly good for us.
Yes.
To still be here and
complaining.
kind of keeping an eye on things as the managers' meetings unfold over the next couple of days. And our producer, J.D. Lindbergh, unfortunately did not draw this assignment, and he is still in kind of rainy, cold
50 degrees up here today in New Jersey, EJ. Yeah, keep bragging about the assignment. I love it. It's nice. Good for you guys.
Yeah.
Happy for you. Where's the green
Yeah.
today?
Well,
Neither of
maybe
you guys.
listen. Maybe someday. Maybe someday.
Oh, no green.
Yeah, you know, it's so silly.
Think of it.
I never think of it like in the morning,
Yeah.
right? I had a green shirt on, and I just didn't like the way it was working with the jacket, so I took it off. So I would have been in the right to have it on today, but didn't work out. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, JD?
Well, you got to be careful. A leprechaun might pinch you. That's what my mom would say to us if you didn't wear green on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
But, hey, big
Yeah.
show you guys are in South
Yeah.
Florida. General managers meetings. Going to get a ton of great interviews this week, next 2 days with you guys down there. Looking forward to it. All the shifties out there, this is a good week to download the podcast and tune in. We're available each and every day on YouTube and YouTube Music as an audio-only podcast. Help support the show so that EJ and Dan can keep taking luxurious trips to warm locales.
Wow. I have a lot to say there, but I won't say it.
Yeah, well, you know, the fact is, though, we've been coming down here for many years now, so I don't know if that will change.
No,
but
listen.
we can use the support. All right, JD, get out of there. Let's get to first things first, because we are here in Florida for the GM's meetings, and managers did have their meetings this morning. They broke into the small groups. A lot of discussion.
That's where EJ's sleeping, by the way.
Yeah, hey, I'll take it. It's not so bad. It's not so bad. But a lot of discussion about coaches' challenges in the different forms, right? And a little bit of a history lesson for some of the younger managers that were here today. What were the buzz and in the conversations you were having?
Listen, this was educational. That's how I took it, and that's what we were in a presentation.
Yeah.
You and I were both in it. It was a presentation that was being given by Chris King, Stephen Walcom, Coley Campbell, Rod Pasma.
Kay Whitmore.
Kay Whitmore was in there too. It's all the hockey ops guys. They were in there. It's the same presentation, just maybe condensed down.
Yeah.
That they gave to the general managers, and it's regarding the education of the Coaches Challenge rule, the evolution of the Coaches Challenge rule. Because you got to remember, there's a number of general managers that were not general managers back in 2015-16 season. Some were playing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like some of these guys, they were not GMs. They were not involved in the creation of this rule when it was first implemented in the 2015-16 season for offside reviews and goalie interference reviews. So they want to educate them on the video review process, on where on how they come to decisions, the process through that they come to that decision, the standards that they have for those decisions. So that was a big part of it. Now, of course, you know, the one that generated the most conversation in the presentation we were in, and I imagine it did in the general managers, was goalie interference.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense because that's the one that's not so black and white. It's a lot harder to determine. But they did go through a lot of videos, and there does seem to be a consensus on goaltender interference of what is goaltender interference and what is not goaltender interference. It's not 100%. In fact, Coley Campbell said, there are times where we'll make a call, and then I'll poll the general managers. Let's say 12 of them. And it might come back 7-5.
Yeah.
It might come back 8-4, but it's typically in the favor of the rule of how it was ruled and the process that they got to ruling it. So they're looking at, were you in the white paint or the blue paint?
I think that's the biggest thing for
Right?
fans out there is like if you're watching a game,
The checklist.
and you're but like for the guideline, if you're just watching the game
Yeah.
and you see a play, if a player goes through that blue paint, if a skater goes through that blue paint, 8 out of 10 times that's going to be goalie interference, right?
But
If
he's
there's-
allowed to.
Yeah,
go in
but
there.
you're allowed to go in there, but if there's a play and there's a
Yeah.
review, right? If you're watching a game and there's a review and you watch the guy goes cruising through that blue, there's any kind of contact or makes it hard for a goalie to play his position, that's likely going to be goalie interference. When the play happens outside of the
Yes.
blue paint, and again, for fans watching at home, and we had a play that on our NHL Network Showcase game, and they showed the play today in the room. The Islanders and the Nashville Predators, when Kyle Palmieri kind of clipped the skate of UC Saros, but he was outside of the blue paint.
Yep.
They did not feel it was intentional because that's the other thing to weigh here, right? If they feel it's intentional, then it's a goalie interference penalty. No penalty, no goalie interference on that particular play. So the blue paint and the white paint is a guideline, I think, for fans watching games.
It is very much a guideline. If the player, and Kay Whitmore brought this up, if a goalie is playing deep in his blue, he's going to get the benefit of the doubt.
That's correct.
If a player is in the white, the player is going to get the benefit of the doubt. They go through some other things. Did they initiate contact? Where was the contact initiated? Did the goalie initiate the contact? Was the player initiating contact? Was the player pushed in?
Yeah.
Did he not initiate the contact, but the defenseman initiated the contact?
Yeah.
There's a checklist of items that they go through on these things, but if it impacts directly the goalie's ability to make the save,
do his job.
and there's nothing the goalie did, chances are that goal's coming down.
Yeah, so they had
And we've had more goalie interference, by the way, challenges this year. Why is that?
well.
Because there's more guys going to the net.
That's right. That's what they
it.
pointed out is that, it's competitive games,
Yeah.
it's tight games. They always say, Coley Campbell said in second period, it's a close game. Let's get to the net. Let's get pucks to the net.
Yep.
So that's where, that's where the action
Right.
is. That's where you have to get if you want to score goals. So that's an ongoing process. They had those small groups today, and they will get back. They will report back, and that process will continue. But that was really the main thrust of things
That was the main
here
of it.
today. Coley Campbell even said, he goes, very unlikely there's going to be any rule changes
Yeah.
moving forward, and that would still have to go to the Players Association, go through the Board of Governors. So that would be a long way off anyway. They wouldn't change any rules during the season or in the playoffs. So it looks like there'll be a continuing discussion about review, in particular with offsides plays and missed stoppages, and then, of course, goalie interference. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as we move forward.
Yeah, and they feel like they're in a really good place with it. So
Yeah.
that's the good thing, and it's educational, like we said. And they also went over some statistical stuff.
Yeah.
Trends in the game. Goals are up over 6 per game again for the 4th straight year.
Hasn't happened in 30 years.
No,
If they get there, and it looks like they
keeps
will.
going up. Overtime is interesting, right? I mean, there's 74% of the games that go to overtime
Are ending.
in overtime.
Yeah.
So there was some talk about, do you extend the minutes in overtime, go to 7 or 8?
That was after the Four Nations,
Yeah,
right? Because
right.
people were saying, hey, they played a 10-minute overtime. Why don't we play maybe 7 or 8 minutes in the NHL, which I still think is a difficult thing to do over 82 games. Teams are traveling, ice conditions. So I think it's 74%. That's pretty good.
It's the highest. So,
Yeah.
no need.
Yeah, so the meetings will continue tomorrow, and we'll be here to continue to document what's going on for you. But let's face it, the games continue to go on. And yesterday afternoon in Denver, wow. I mean, we got a preview. We got a little preview. Mikko Rantanen came back, played for the Dallas Stars. He ended up getting an assist in the game. Stars rallied in the third to force overtime, but then it was Cale Makar in OT. You see Rantanen there was accepting and acknowledging the fans in Colorado. They love Mikko Rantanen, and they are excited to see him back in town, but they were more excited to see Cale Makar score, and the fans just went nuts. It just shows you like the intensity of the games between the Avalanche and the Stars and what the fans are expecting. And you see the Central Division standings. I mean, I think we're pretty locked in here, Dan, because the Jets now have a pretty sizable lead in the division. Dallas has a couple of games in hand, but it's going to be really difficult to make up 11 points. So now the battle probably is for home ice between the Stars and the Avalanche. I talked to Jim Nill today, by the way. I said, what's the update on Miro Heiskanen? Because obviously they're really going to need him in that first round, like, death match with Colorado. And he said, really, be honest with you, EJ, we're not 100% sure. We're hoping maybe late in the regular season, maybe in the first round. But he says, listen, I don't want to mislead you. We're still waiting. So they're hoping that he will be back in. But what a day, what an afternoon in Colorado as we got a preview of what most likely will be a first-round series and a first-round series to remember.
Well, with this stuff with Nil, it makes sense, right? I had another general manager tell me today he's got an injured player, and he was saying, I can't give a timeline. I don't want to give a timeline because the moment I do, it provides hope. But then it might not be happening.
That's right. You don't know.
So you don't know. But that is, it's battle for home ice.
Yeah.
Dallas, has a couple of games in hand, so that's good for them. I honestly, maybe home ice matters in that series. Maybe it
Maybe
doesn't.
not. I mean,
I
Dallas
don't
and
know.
Colorado have met recently, and the Dallas Stars have fared well playing in Colorado. And they fared well against the Avalanche in their history. Here's a look at the Avs' upcoming schedule here. They're out on the road for 3 in Eastern Canada, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal. That's going to be a tough swing as all those teams, the Leafs have had some ups and downs, but that's a good team back-to-back in Ottawa. Ottawa's been red hot. Montreal's been hot. Then they come back home for a homestand. So,
But
it's going to be interesting.
they're the team right now.
Yeah.
I think they're the team right now. I am very high on the Avalanche. What they've been able to do, how they've changed things up for their entire roster, their depth chart, everything. They have 9 new players.
Yeah.
2 of them are goalies, but 9, that's a lot.
A lot.
Changeover. And a lot of times you'll hear, it's too, I don't want to alter it too much. But they started altering this with the goaltending change in December, late November and December. And then it was the Rantanen trade, and that was the Shockwave trade, right? But they slowly got Natchez worked into them, Jack Drury worked into them, and they took a look and said, what do we need? Yeah. We need center depth. So they went out and got Brock Nelson and Charlie Coyle. Like, you look at how they reimagined their center depth and they reimagined their goaltending depth. It's remarkable. And it hasn't disrupted the core. It hasn't disrupted the play because it's still driven by McKinnon and Makar. Regardless of what goes on there, it's driven by those 2 players. And if those 2 players are playing at the level they're playing at, everybody's going to fall in line behind them.
It's hard to imagine a group of 4 centers slotted any better.
It's perfect.
Than your right shot, Nate McKinnon, left shot, Brock Nelson, right shot, Charlie Coyle, left shot, Jack Drury. All have particular roles. Coyle can go back into that 3C role where I think he can be at his best. So, they're going to be a handful.
They're the team I'm looking at.
But that first series, though.
Well, that's the thing.
I mean, wow.
There's 2 issues.
Wow.
Right? So the team that comes out of that first series, someone would say, they're going to be beat up, right? Or others are going to say, they're going to be rolling.
Yeah.
They're going to be feeling really good. And they're going to be like, it ain't going to get any harder than this.
And you never know what to expect because last year those 2 teams played, and now there was some different situations. And, we had the Nichushkin thing where he was not part of it. And the Dallas Stars won in 5 games.
Yeah,
it is a lot different this year. We'll see if Heiskanen gets back. But really, really looking forward to that most likely first-round series between the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. Let's take it back east, and Alexander Ovechkin over the weekend. He strikes again.
But again,
Ovechkin against the Sharks in the win in San Jose, and Ovi gets goal number 887. And now he just needs, what is it, Dan? 7 to tie, 8 to break.
8 to break.
And there it is, the goal against the Sharks. Coming down the stretch here.
It's the best story going in sports.
Well, it's a crazy story.
I mean, honestly,
it's a record we never thought was going to be broken, and now Alex Ovechkin is closing in. The team has been good. I bring that up all the time because I think that's so important. The Washington Capitals have been so good this year. They've really supported Ovechkin, and he's played well. And by the way, he's got the most goals in the third period of any player in the league. He's got 18 in the third period, so scoring at key times in the game.
And so people look at his empty net goals, too, and say,
Empty net goals are at an all-time high, by the way.
Okay.
Just because
they are.
Because goalies are out. We heard that today.
Goalies are out. 1:13 is typical, goalie out of the game. But so people will look at his empty net goals and be like, well, I mean, he's getting freebies. You know what? Gretzky had empty net goals.
That's
too.
right.
But here's the thing. He's on the ice in that situation for a reason.
Yeah.
He's on the ice in that situation because he's one of those guys that helps protect the lead now, too, and build on it, right? They're not going to put him out there if he's going to be a liability in those situations. okay, maybe they're trying to get him an extra goal here and there, and that's fine.
You saw
but-
the other night he gave the puck to Protas. He didn't
Right.
do anything.
Yeah, well, Protas scored
Protas
the
got
hat-trick.
the hat trick in the game, so that was a smart play, an unselfish play, and certainly showing to be a good
But he's
teammate
out
in that
there
situation.
for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not just to get a freebie. He's
Yeah.
and it's not a freebie either. You've got to get the puck. You've got to get it down the ice. It's not as easy as everyone says when there's 6 on the other side and they're attacking, because it's typically a 1-goal game.
Yeah.
Right. And we've got a lot of 1-goal games. Went over that again. Today as well. But listen, it's remarkable what he's doing. I'm still eyeing that April 6th against the Islanders. I think it was.
Oh, really?
April 6th
Okay.
against the Islanders.
Wouldn't it be something if it came down to that last game
why?
against the Penguins?
Well, it would be, but
Sidney Crosby.
Okay, so I prefer, if he's going to do it, I want him to do it before the last game,
Okay.
because then he doesn't get
It's all about you.
celebration.
It's all about you.
But it's really about me, because April 6th I'll be able to go to the game at UBS Arena, and I want to be there for history. So it's very much about me.
I mean,
Alex, do it for me. For me.
Ovi's not going to request that you just trail him and like
No,
Tom
that's
Galletti.
Tom.
Tom
That's
Galletti
Tom's
gets pushed
job.
off and you can jump in.
Tom's doing a phenomenal
Yes,
job.
he is.
Oh, my goodness.
He always
He's
does a
had
good
some-
job.
Hey,
Tom Galletti, one of the great
Go
reporters.
read Tom Galletti's coverage on NHL.com of Alex Ovechkin.
He's
Just
all
terrific.
over it. He's all over it.
Yep.
All right. It's time to get to the 3 stars of the week presented by Geico. And we'll take a look at who is on the list this week. And you can see it there. Brandon Martour, the 3rd star of the week. 3 goals, 3 assists in the 3 games. Yeah, that overtime game winner against the
4
Montreal
seconds.
Canadiens when he jumped it. How about Jesper Bratt? 9 points in 3 games. He's really stepped his game up with the injuries they've had in New Jersey. And Darcy Kemper, I don't know how it gets much better than that. He had 2 shutouts, 3-0, 9.87 goals against average. So the very Natalie coiffed Darcy Kemper. He's got the good hair. He's got the good hair, Darcy Kemper. And you can see it here, back-to-back shutouts against the Capitals and against the Nashville Predators. So good week for Darcy Kemper.
Yeah, but look at the saves and shots faced. Right? I mean, that tells you where the Kings are at right now. They don't score a lot of goals.
They lock it down.
They can lock you down, and I do wonder when they get to the playoffs if locking it down. If they're gonna, are they gonna have enough offense when they get to the playoffs? If let's say they play Edmonton in the first round, right? Are they gonna have enough offense to push ahead in that series, to push forward? You know they're gonna play defensively strong, and if they're gonna get goaltending like that, they're gonna have a shot. But they got to be able to score enough. But they do lock it down so well.
Yeah, no question about it. 1-0 over the Nashville Predators
Yep.
the other night. They feel right at home. And, we're going to have Stan Bowman on a little bit later in the show from the Edmonton Oilers, their general manager. And, that's another series. We talked about Dallas and Colorado. That's another series that's kind of looming. We could end up with another repeat of the Oilers and Kings. What's that, part 4?
Yeah, but the Oilers are eyeing first place. So
Well, they're eyeing it, but they're not there yet. They're not there yet.
Oh, they're still a little bit of ways away, but they're eyeing it. They want it. We'll see.
All right, so those are the 3 stars of the week presented by Geico. Coming up next, as I mentioned, we got Stan Bowman, the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers, joining us from here in sunny South Florida.
3 stars of the week is presented by Geico. Switch and save. Get more with Geico.
Welcome back to the GM's meetings. Day 1, Manalapan, Florida. NHL Tonight first shift. EJ Raddick, Dan Rosen, and we're joined now by the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers, Stan Bowman. And, Stan, it's interesting to talk to you today because, you were a manager for many years in Chicago. You were away from the game for a short period of time. And now you're back in Edmonton here with in this job. How, is it different? Has it changed? I mean, is the approach changed in these meetings? What's different, if anything?
No, I would say the meetings are pretty similar to the way they've always been run. It's nice to be back to see familiar faces and get a chance to listen in on what the state of the league is. I think the first takeaway is just the league's in a great place right now. I think as a fan watching the game, I think it's never been more exciting, and I think we saw that with the Four Nations event. Was just spectacular hockey. But beyond that, sometimes when we had these meetings in the past, there was a real hot button issue.
Yeah.
This year, I don't see that. I think it's a testament to where the game is at. Very competitive races, in both the East and the West. The games are fun. The scoring seems to be up. So there's a lot to be excited about. And now it's probably more fine-tuning or just discussing different things, but there's not a big pressing problem with the league.
Oh yeah, I remember covering these meetings, Stan, when it was like, the world was crashing down around the NHL and the staged fighting meeting. I remember that
Hitting the head, right?
To the head. Oh yeah.
Sure.
But again, we're still talking about Coach's Challenge.
Right.
And we're still talking about goalie interference, which we know is not black and white, right? So EJ and I were just in a presentation, the same one that the GMs were in, where, Stephen Walcom and Chris King and Coley Campbell and Rod Pasma from Hockey Ops were going over this stuff. What's your take right now on the goalie interference? Is it being called the way you think it should be called? Is it when you don't have a black and white? Like when you saw some of the presentation today, what was your takeaway on it?
I think the big takeaway is, you probably had the same observation, is it's complicated.
Yeah.
It is not. I think there's sometimes a narrative that people are getting it wrong, or there's a simple way to fix it. But you're dealing with subjective things. The offside is a bit different. That's a little bit more black and white. Yeah. The interference, it's at the end of the day, it's a judgment call, and you have to take a ton of factors into place. Number one, was the player in the blue, outside the blue? If he was in the blue, was he forced into the blue? If he was outside the blue, was it incidental contact or was it intentional? So those are all determinations you have to make. It's not readily apparent. Two people can have a different opinion on it. So I think when you add it all up and you look at what the league does, and they do this all the time, every night, you realize, like, wow, it is pretty complicated. Yeah. And I think for the most part they do an excellent job. You can quibble with some things here and there maybe, but I think you have to acknowledge that, when you see them all in a row, it's like, wow, that I can see that it's not that simple. So I think they do a great job. I've been impressed with the process they go through, and I think that's the thing, understanding the thought process that goes into it. And they have essentially the same group that's in on all these challenges over the course of a season. So I think I was impressed with the way it's handled right now.
Stan, it's interesting. We did see that presentation, and Chris King talked about this is educational. There's a lot of younger managers, newer managers in. There's been turnover in that area. You're someone that has more experience. Did you like watching the evolution and the explanation of the evolution of the rules changes over the last, let's say, 10 or 15 years? Yeah,
I thought that was really helpful to summarize, because you're right. We have a handful of managers that have been around for maybe 10 or 12 years, but there is a new group coming in, and they maybe didn't have the benefit of those, because some years we spent a day or two talking about it, and now it's good to get everyone together, explain. I think it's at a good place, though. I think if anything, it's matured. Like it's not something that just came about, so they have enough history with it, and I think, like I said, I was impressed that they did a good job presenting it and showing us that. There are a lot of factors at play, but when you cut down to it, I think they've got it at a pretty good place right now.
It was also interesting to me, the statistical analysis that we saw too, overtime, right? I remember last year we were at this meeting and there was talk of overtime, and some managers at the time were saying they don't like the regroup, it takes too much time, and and that kind of went nowhere. And because overtime games that went to overtime, 70% of them were ending in overtime. Yeah. Right. Well, now it's 74%. Mm-hmm. So it keeps going up. Yeah. And there was talk, Four Nations face-off, we saw 10-minute overtime. And I wondered, and I'm curious if you did, that there would be talk of extending overtime here to 7 or 8 minutes, maybe not 10. But doesn't seem to be at all the case, because these games continue to end in overtime at a better rate each year.
Yeah, you're right. We haven't talked about extending it yet. I don't know if we will in the coming days. But I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that sometimes you're maybe searching to solve problems that don't exist.
Right, exactly.
Which is okay. I think that it shows that I think the league is in a good place. But I agree. I think that we all like the fact that games get decided before the shootout. I mean, if it gets to that, then we go that way. But I do think it's better to have it settled with the gameplay, whether it's a 3-on-3 rather than 5-on-5. But you're right. The numbers show that, if anything, it's actually trending that direction. Yeah. So I don't know that we have a problem. I think sometimes things get a little question gets blown up and everyone gets maybe down the wrong path, that we have this big problem that needs solving. I'm not sure that's the case.
Yeah, we've seen that movie over the years. I want to ask you also, as part of the statistical breakdown, the races are so close, with those wild card spots, and we've seen a number of changes. Each day it seems like there's new teams in the wild card spots on that particular day. Again, I want to lean on your experience. I mean, do you think it's even tighter now in this league than it was like 8-10 years ago?
It sure seems like it.
Yeah, it does.
Like just watching the standings daily here, which we all do, it's impossible to figure out, who has the upper hand. So I think that speaks to the parity in the league and the competitive balance. It's never been like this before. So that's a good thing. I think it certainly keeps a lot of markets involved. And, here we are in the middle of March, and there's, other than maybe a team or two, everyone's still got a chance if they make a bit of a run here. So, that's great for the game, and I think it's great for the fans.
Do you think, though, I wonder, because the cap's going to be going up, right? We know the cap's going to be going up. We've seen the 3-year increases. Do you think that could impact the parity in the league? Like, will the teams that have the financial wherewithal to spend more spend to that cap, and the teams that maybe are more in the middle with that, they won't? And will that impact any parity, or does that just make it those teams that give a further push for scouting and development?
Yeah, well, on the one hand, you could make that argument that as the cap goes up, there'll be some separation between teams that spend to it and teams that don't. The question is there a direct one-to-one correlation between spending and winning?
Right.
And I think we've seen historically that wasn't really the case. You would think logically that's the case, that if you have the more expensive roster, then you're going to be a better team. But I don't know if that's really true. So I think you still need to take that into account. So in theory, that might be the case. I'm not sure that's the way it's going to play out, though.
All right, let me ask you about your team, the Edmonton Oilers. They get off a win over the New York Rangers on Sunday night. Team got a win against the Islanders as well, so things moving in the right direction again. I mean, we talked about it as we were getting ready here. It's been an odd year. Slow start, then a really good stretch of almost 3 months, and then a little bit of a downturn. Hopefully you guys are getting in the right direction. And where do you see it?
Yeah, you're right. We did it. We had slow out of the gate, and, it's hard to figure out why, other than, they played late into June, and there was some new players coming in. I think trying to fit their new roles in, it didn't go great in October. But once the calendar got into November, I think we went on a really good stretch there until the end of January. I think we were, one of the top teams in the league. We were playing well, really, in every facet of the game. I thought our special teams was good, our goaltending, our scoring. We weren't giving up a lot of chances. Then as we got into the end of January, it started to shift a bit on us, and a few things kind of went against us at the same time, and we were struggling heading into the break, and then coming out of it, we also had a really, really tough road trip there. So I think even this last road trip, we didn't start it so good. We had a 4-game trip. We won the last 2 after losing the first 2. So I think, what we're trying to do is build a little bit more consistency in our game. I think we haven't had that over the last probably 5-6 weeks. It's been win a couple, lose a couple, or even more than that, lose 4 or 5 in a row. So biggest thing is we haven't scored a lot of goals. I think that's which maybe seems strange.
It is strange when we think of the Oilers.
I know.
We think of them scoring goals.
Our power play has been pretty consistently good over the last 6 weeks. It's been over 30%. But even strength goals have been really hard to come by for us. So when you don't score a lot even strength, the games tend to be, even if you're outplaying teams, it's
tight.
It's right there, and you're susceptible to fluke plays or random events. So I think we'd like to try to get that going in the positive direction. I will say, though, the last road trip we had, even though we didn't win all of them, they were all what I would call more playoff-style games, low-chance games. It reminded me of what you're going to see in the playoffs. So, if anything, I think we're getting ready for that right now. And I think I saw a stat the other day that we've played 19 one-goal games, I think, since January, most in the league. So I think we're comfortable playing those games, and I think we're getting used to because it's different. I mean, it's not as freewheeling in the playoffs. You have to be willing to dig in a bit more, and I think we've shown the ability and the willingness to do that. I'd like to see us score a bit more to maybe have some. Even the games we've been winning are one-goal wins, so there's a lot of stress in those. But I think all in all, we're not healthy right now either. We're missing Ekholm and Frederick, and we haven't really since the deadline. We have some new additions, but the whole group hasn't been together yet.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. I mean, is it hard to give a complete analysis of where your team is right now and what they could be game one? Because you don't have Ekholm, you don't have Frederick. You've never seen Frederick play with your group, and Ekholm's been out, and you didn't have him for the road trip. So does it make it? Do you have to have a little patience in your analysis as a result?
I think so. I think they're pretty important players for us. Certainly Ekholm, he's probably been our best defenseman all year long. When you add in the all-around game, I mean, Bouchard certainly is offensively really good. I think Eki does a little bit of everything for us. So that's hurt our team to have him out. And we added Wallman at the deadline. He's been fantastic, but we haven't had Wallman and Ekholm in the lineup yet together. I think that'll give our defense a really nice look. So, and Frederick, he brings an element that we really were lacking. So I'd love to see what that looks like, whether he plays center or if we use him on the wing. I think that's something we've talked to our coaches. They're open to both ideas. So you're right. We do need a little bit of patience here, and it's hopefully not going to be too much longer until we can get that whole group together. But in the meantime, we still have games. We still got to find a way to win those games, and we want to finish first. We want to get home ice. So that's been our goal, is to win the division. So we're 4 points behind right now, but that's certainly within distance if we keep pushing.
Yeah. Hey, how was the deadline for you? Again, you're back in it this year. A couple years have gone by. Everybody's in a unique situation. It seemed like it was a great seller's market. I don't know how much it was for buyers. It seemed like there was way more buyers than sellers. But how was the deadline for you?
We were trying to add some strategic pieces. We didn't really want to bring in like 5 or 6 new players. I think sometimes that's hard to incorporate with just the last month of the season, and to find everyone's roles and sort that out. So we added Wallman and Frederick and Max Jones. Those were the 3 additions that we made. Wallman's been excellent for us. I've really been impressed with his ability to jump right into our group, and it's like he's been playing all year with our team. So he's been a big addition. Max Jones has played a smaller role, but he's brought the physicality.
He had some jump. I saw his first game against Montreal. I thought he was all over the place in that game.
And even last night against the Rangers, he had 4 or 5 hits. He doesn't play a lot of minutes, but we didn't have that element.
Energy.
Energy, and I think Frederick certainly will do that, and he'll play a bigger role likely as well, minute-wise. So I think we were trying to find some different elements to our team. We like to add that mix. Maybe in the playoffs, hopefully Evander can be back too. So Evander hasn't played for the team this year. So I think when we get all those pieces back, we're going to look different than we did most of the season. And I think it's an element that can help you in a playoff series.
Are you preparing? Last one for me. Are you preparing for Evander Kane to play in the playoffs? Do you not, or do you have an idea yet if he will or won't?
Well, if we go long enough, he definitely will.
Right.
I think it's
so you want him to?
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to have him back. I think.
But what does that mean? Does that mean second round, third round? Do you have any idea? I mean, with an injury, you never know, I guess.
Well, no. He's just getting back to skating now, so it's how long is that going to take until he's ready to actually play in games? So we don't really know that yet. But it's not just Evander. I think Frederick hasn't played for us either.
Yeah.
So we'd love to see what our team looks like when we add a little bit more of that. Straight ahead physical play. We've certainly got some skilled players. Leon's having, I think, the best season in the league right now. I mean, I got a chance to watch him every night, and I'll tell you what, he's been so dangerous. Not only making plays, but he's leading the league in goals by a wide margin.
Yep.
His 2-way game is overlooked. He's that game the other night in the Island. He had a few back checks where he stole the puck and went the other way. I think everyone was surprised just how much he is competing in both ends of the rink. He's been a leader for us, and you can't can't overlook Connor McDavid. We haven't even talked about Connor in the interview here. And he scores that huge goal in the Four Nations to lift team to victory, and scored a big goal last night. And I think that's just what he does to he can change the course of the game in one shift. He's got that such explosive skating, and he makes so many plays, but he can score too. So obviously with Connor and Leon, they're game changers for us, and we want to try to support them. We've put too much on their shoulders, I think, this year. It can't always just be those two guys leading us to victory, but they're so good at it that I think it's understandable when you look down the bench and you just kind of wait for them to make a play. But we want some other guys to step up too.
Yeah, well, hey, it's nice to have.
Right.
97 and 29 on the bench. Stan, thanks so much for the time today. We really appreciate it. Good luck to the Oilers the rest of the way.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
All right, Stan Bowman, the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers. Much more from the GM's meetings when we come back here on First Shift. Welcome back to NHL Tonight. First Shift from sunny Manalapan, Florida. The waves coming in, people enjoying the beautiful weather. Dan Rosen was out in the ocean earlier. While he was out there, I caught up with Don Waddell, the general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Take a listen. Don, what was the focus of the meetings this morning?
Most of the goalie interference. We spent a lot of time, every group saw the same replays of goals, and we all rated them, what we thought, no goal or goal, and we'll get that tally tomorrow, but I can guarantee it's going to be all over the map because every situation's different. Even though you had one with your team, when you look at another team, it's all different. So, to me, the biggest thing with goalie interference is whatever the call on the ice is, you got to make sure that you have a real reason to challenge it, to overturn it, because most times it doesn't get overturned.
Why is it so difficult? Is it just because all of them are such different plays around the net, and obviously goals are hard to come by, so it's a big play in the game? Yeah,
no, it is. And then sometimes with the goalie interference, you got to make sure, did he go in there on his own? Did he get a little nub to go in there? Did he go in there and come out and the goalie had a chance to reset? There's so many factors that play into it, and that's why it's so hard to review and make a decision about challenging.
How about the goalie interference plays where the goalie is outside the blue? It seems like that's an area where it gets really tricky because the goalie should be allowed to come out and try to make a play if he establishes in time, but that's not always the way it's called.
No, if the goalie's established in a position, it's one thing. You still can't interfere with him, just like any player. But sometimes it's incidental contact because he's outside the blue painted player coming through, and those you got to live with.
Anything else stand out on the agenda for the week to come?
Oh, we got lots of things we'll talk about. I'm sure CBA and scheduling and all the common things that we always talk about, but nothing particular.
How about the schedule? They talked about the possibility of maybe adding 2 games down the road. Is that something that's still in the works?
I don't know. We're going to hear that update here in the next 24, 48 hours, I'm sure. So I know it's been talked about. I read about it more in the media than I do. I've heard yet from the league. So we'll find out more.
Let me ask you about your team because it's been kind of a rougher ride of late, but you had the great Stadium Series game, great for the city and the franchise. You got a big one tonight against the Devils. Where are you guys right now?
Yeah, we're struggling a little bit to score goals, which we were leading the league at one time in goals at home, and we got shut out the last 2 games. We've lost, I think, 4 of our last 5 or something like that. And, we played some good teams, Tampa, and Florida down there, and Vegas. It shows you how much further the good teams are ahead of us. But like I said, these games we're playing right now are great for our young players because it's like playoff games every night.
How is it in the office there and around the building and everything? Everybody must be pumped.
No, it's buzzing. We've been selling out almost every game, and so it's been the community. We saw it with the Stadium Series game at Ohio State there. To get 95,000 people is incredible. I don't think anybody could have predicted that. So it just shows you the excitement that we have going around the city.
All right, Donnie, thanks for the time and enjoy the week.
You got it. Thanks, buddy.
All right, so thanks to Don Waddell. Really appreciate him taking a few minutes for us so you can see the schedule for the Jackets. And, it's a big one tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Against the New Jersey Devils. They were inching up on the Devils only a week ago, but since the Stadium Series games, they've lost 5 of 6 and 3 in a row. Haven't scored in their last 2 games. So really important. They're at 70 points right now. They're 2 points out of a spot. There's all those teams that are kind of nuzzled up against one another. And Montreal 71 points. Rangers in that final spot at 72. Where are the Jackets in your mind right now? Because it's been really a good season, and Don talked about it. They score a lot of goals. All of a sudden, they've gone dry.
Yeah, it's been a great season for Columbus. It's been a feel-good season for Columbus. They've been the best team story, I think, in the National Hockey League this season.
With the tragedy at the start of the season.
Yeah. I mean, the individual story is Ovechkin. The team story is the Blue Jackets. Yeah. But I got to tell you, I mean, losing 5 out of 6 since that Stadium Series game has me worried about them. The lack of goal scoring has me worried about them. I do worry that they're running out of steam a little bit, right? And this is a team that we knew was overplaying from expectations, right? I mean, they were playing well above expectations from what they were at the start of the season, and they were scoring a ton of goals, as Don mentioned, and now they're not. So is this just a little bump that they can get over? Listen, there's time. They can get over it, right? They got to start winning now.
They've got a couple games in hand on the Rangers.
Yeah, they got to start winning now, right? I mean, they absolutely do. They don't have the regulation wins tiebreaker. That's the Rangers' favorite.
Nobody does. I think the Rangers have that over just about
30,
everyone.
Yeah, because they never go to overtime, and they never do win when they do. They did the other night,
and Rosen.
But regardless, so I do have a little concern, though. A little bit of concern with the Jackets coming off of – they were so looking forward to that Stadium Series game. It was so big for them. And in fact, you talked to Zach Werenski, and I did, at the Stadium Series, and he was saying, we wanted – the goal of this season was let's be in it. When that Stadium Series comes around, let's make that something meaningful, right? And then let's take it from there. Well, they were in it, no question about it, and they won it. And since then, they've dipped, and that's concerning.
Kind of stole that game when you think back on it. The Red Wings had almost 50 shots in that game.
Yeah, they stole Elvis.
And Elvis Merzlikins was definitely in the building on that particular occasion.
By the way, I was not swimming in the ocean before, by the way. I was sunning on the beach.
Well, until you can prove that, well, let's get to this.
All right.
Away from your
I had to
into the
defend
ocean.
myself.
Here's from Mark Shag about the line combinations for the Jackets. And you can see there Marchenko, Voronkov, and Shinnikov at the top. So welcome back to the Russian line. See Jenner, Fantilli, Johnson, and right on down the line. So they're looking for scoring. They got to get it going, and there's Dean Evison shuffling things around a little bit.
Sillinger being out is not helping them too.
Monahan's still out.
So everybody's got injuries, right? You got to play through them, but they didn't have. They've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of young talent. Like you show those lines, I mean, that's a lot of young talent there. Yeah. Fantilli has really come into his own. He's developing, and Johnson's developing, and Sillinger was having a good run until he got hurt. And so the injuries hurt them a little bit more maybe because of the depth issue, I guess. But, listen, they're right there. And let's not forget that. They've played themselves into this position at the Stadium Series. That gave them the ability to have this bump, this bump in the road. Dip, if you will. But they got to get to scoring.
Yeah.
And maybe the Devils are the right team to get going against.
Well,
right?
We'll find out. The Devils took care of them last week in New Jersey. That was last Tuesday night, so we'll see if they can do it tonight. Quick point, Donnie Waddell, he said it. He said, these games are all good for their young players.
Great.
Because they're important games. Whether they make it or not, they'll really learn from that. We'll see if they can get a win tonight and get back on track at home against the Devils. When we come back, we're going to wrap up day one here in Manalapan, Florida. First shift rolls on. Let's take a look at the St. Paddy's Day schedule. 5 games for this Monday night. And again, happy St. Paddy's Day to everybody out there. And you can see the Bruins are home. That makes sense. 7 o'clock against the Sabres. Jackets and Devils. Flyers and Lightning. The Flames and the Leafs at 7:30. Then the Wild hosting the Kings at 8 o'clock. And let's talk a little bit about the West right now, Dan. And the Calgary Flames. They're starting a 4-game road trip here in Toronto. They'll be at the Garden to play the Rangers on Tuesday night, finish up the trip with the Devils and the Islanders, head back home. But 2 points out of a spot right now, but they have 2 games in hand on Vancouver, who currently sits in that spot via tiebreaker over St. Louis. The Flames, you can see it right here. I mean, they've got the games to make it. They got 3 games in hand on the Blues. But can they put it together down the stretch? They've been a feel-good story this year. They were supposed to be rebuilding, and they're right in the mix.
Hanging around. They've been hanging around all season long. They're right in there, right in the mix. A couple of things going against them, though. They've only won 2 of their last 8 games.
That's a negative.
2-3-3 in their last 8. They came out of the break winning their first 2 games out of the break, and they've only won 2 of 8 since. Though they have points in 5 of them, so they're collecting some points along the way, but they've only won 2 of those 5. And 10 of their last 17 games are on the road, and they've only got 12 road wins this season.
Yeah.
I think they're like 12-13-6 on the road, or
Not great.
yeah, not that record. That's not right. That doesn't sound right.
Well, it's not good.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good.
Not good.
But anyway, 10 out of 17 on the road, so it's tough. It's going to be tough. And the St. Louis Blues are playing a lot
Blues
better.
are playing well.
Really well. They've come along.
They'd be in the spot if they didn't blow that game in Pittsburgh, but
Right.
they ran into a hot Penguins team.
Yes,
Penguins
exactly.
have won 4 in a
Yeah.
row.
Well, again, when you're not playing with much pressure on you, you start to play a little bit better,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the Flames have a lot of pressure on them now because they've been in it all year. If they weren't in it all year and they were fighting up, it probably wouldn't be as much. But they've been in it all year, so they want to get in. They really are pushing for it. And Vancouver's right there. St. Louis is right there. Utah's right there. So it's going to be hard. The road games doesn't help. The schedule that they've had so far not helping. They got to be able to score a little bit. Get this road trip 4 in a row. I mean, how many points do they need on this road trip?
Well, I think you'd like to get at least 4.
At least 4.
At least
I think
4.
you need 5. to be
You're
honest.
always pushing for more.
Yeah, I think you need 5. And by the way, 12, 13, and 6. I did the math in my head. It does sound right.
All right, there you go. Glad to see that. So tonight the GMs they've had this great thing that they do. It's become kind of a thing they do every year. They honor a former general manager, and they're honoring Dean Lombardi tonight.
Yeah.
The Stanley Cup champion with the LA Kings, also in San Jose. So it should be a fun night for the managers and to honor Dean.
Yeah, happy St. Patty's Day to them. They'll enjoy a night of St. Patty's
Could
Day.
be a long night.
It could be one. They'll have an 8 a.m. meeting.
That's right. So it
All
won't
right?
be that long.
Won't be
It
that
won't be that long.
No, lots to discuss still here. There's a lot on the agenda that they'll be looking at. No rule changes more than likely, but lots for these guys to be talking about. And it's great for them. They always honor a GM. It's fantastic. It's this year. It's Dean Lombardi. Good for him.
In the past, I think it was Brian Burke. It was
Yep.
Neil Smith.
David Poyle.
David Poyle, I believe, was last year.
Last year was David Poyle.
So it's a nice tradition they've started here at the GM's meetings, the March meetings, which are the big meetings. That's it for us. Dan will go back in the ocean. Get out there, Dan.
I gotta go do some
Enjoy for a
writing,
nice
some
swim.
podcasting.
We'll see you all tomorrow. NHL Now is coming up next. Be careful diving in, Dan.